Calling the meeting to order, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. It's great to see all of you here tonight. Just a reminder that we do continue to wear our masks during this meeting. If you are speaking at the microphone, to hear you better, you may need to move your mask to the side just while you're speaking so that we can be sure to hear you, and we'll do the same from this side. So at this time, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good.
Councilor Frank,
Here.
Mayor Barber,
Yes.
Councilor Montero,
Present.
Councilor Pazalski,
Here.
Council President Wright,
Here.
Councilor Phillips is absent, Councilor Horning.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as circulated.
So move.
Moved
Second.
Moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. I don't know whether our student representative is here or not. I thought I saw her earlier. Emma, are you here in the room?
I thought I saw her earlier.
Don't see her. Regarding comments from the public, I just want to clarify regarding the item on the agenda regarding the moratorium possibility or discussion. There will be an opportunity for public comment during that agenda item. So if you were hoping to make some comment on that, there'll be an opportunity a little later in the meeting. But other than that, I'd like to invite anyone who would like to address the council on any item not on the agenda. Please provide your name and your address and limit your comments to 4 minutes. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
My name is Carl Shore. I live at 445 12th Avenue. My comments are directed at the workshop that just recently concluded 15-20 minutes ago. Speaking as a person who spent 2.5 years in Multnomah County Central Administration dealing with human services problems, this city is a very, very, very small place. We dealt with $245 million a year in contracts. The city has really no resources to do that. There are all kinds of comments I could make in regards to details, but I'd like to put out the big elephant that's in the room for everybody in the state, and it's never been addressed, at least not publicly. And that is, let's suppose you build a property that can fit 100 people. As soon as that 101st person shows up, you're in violation. You do not have the capacity, we do not have the capacity to solve the Western United States homeless problem. Stop trying to do so. I'm as sympathetic as anyone about the situations of people that can't afford homes. I have grandkids that are struggling to be able to provide homes. But City of Seaside does not have the capacity to solve what should be at minimum a state problem. I'll just leave it at that to consider. The city's attorney made a recommendation, a little soft maybe, but that is just to drop the legislation. It is so badly flawed. The law in the state and the federal courts is so bad. This is one of the worst pieces of legislation because it does not address some sort of capacity. I live a block away from the city's RV park, and I will tell you that about 80% of those people are out of state, or at least the license plate's on there. Seaside is a place that everybody loves to come to, have for decades. What is stopping you from every person that gets thrown out in Montana? There's a lot of Montana people here, by the way, from coming to Seaside. Absolutely nothing, and what you're going to try to do is inadequately meet their needs. You have no chance of doing that. You don't have the land, you don't have the budget, and it is a futile effort to even try. This needs to be pushed at the state, and we need to repeal the laws that mandate that you do. It's not a possible task. It's not that I'm heartless. It just isn't physically possible.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shore. Yes, I think here and then just line up and be ready.
Yeah.
My name is Seamus, live at 150 South Wahana, and I just wanted to thank the council for the thoughtful manner in which the workshop this evening was conducted, and thank you for putting in the work necessary to approach this as best as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Seamus. Yes, sir.
Hello, Russ Mead. I live at 431 10th, so just down the street from what we've been talking about. I'll make a short comment. This is from Merriam-Webster Dictionary. Definition of a slum: a densely populated, usually urban area marked by crowding, rundown housing, poverty, and social disorganization. I would like to state that we now have a slum in Seaside, and it's at the end of my street.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Chris Corder. I'm from 1354 Wakeman Lane in Gearhart. I just want to say thank you to counselors for putting your time and effort into these types of events. Basically just here to open a conversation in regards to our city parks and the need that our children have for some place to conduct baseball and softball activities specifically. We've lost several of those opportunities in the sale of some schools with the Gearhart School and the potential loss of the so-called North 40 area. And I'm just here to open that conversation. I don't know much about what's in the works, but I do know that our city is in dire need of this type of an amenity, and we really need to encourage the development of such and the investment in our youth. I don't know what is in the works, but I just kind of want to open that dialogue, and I want to put it in your guys' ears and just express to you how important it is to several people in the community that put a lot of time and effort into working with our youth and giving them positive activities to do, such as these things. I do know there is opportunity at maybe at the North 40 area with some changing in ownership and things of that nature. So, if there's anything that me and the people I represent, which is I'm just a community member, please let us know. We'd love to get into those discussions.
Just let you know, the North 40 belongs to Clatsup County and has been handed over to the City of Seaside to manage now for perpetuity until we no longer use it that way. So,
Great.
So just to let you know that. Yeah.
Chris, are you suggesting more baseball diamonds?
Yeah, we're short. We lost several t-ball fields. We lost a baseball field, and then the North 40, of course, was a high school field and used for several things, soccer and other things. So a multi-purpose type situation. It's something that just we're in dire need of, and we need to make good, conscientious decisions about now and in the future.
Good. Thanks for bringing that to us. Yeah, thank you both. Yes, ma'am.
Jessica Griggs, 1976, Pine Ridge Drive in Gearhart. I'm just here to piggyback off of what Chris has said about our immense need for more outdoor space for all of our youth. I would say for softball, baseball, soccer, and even Pee Wee football was using all those fields at Gearhart. And so we've lost 3 fields and even more space that was used for practices. And so we really have a big need for that outdoor space. And we've got several community members who are really interested in helping that conversation along, Chris and myself included, and a handful of others. So we'd love to sit down and kind of talk about what is in the works, if anything's in the works, and what we can do to kind of work together.
Great. Okay.
I have a question for you. Have you also approached the city of Gearhart regarding your suggestions?
Good question. Last year when Gearhart Elementary School closed, I reached out to the city and talked about using some of their park spaces, one being across from the fire department and then the other one being up on the hill. That beautiful view right at the end of Pacific Way. And so they okayed us using those spaces. They even said I think they said we could put in like a makeshift little T-ball throughout some bases, but it's really not sufficient because for a couple reasons, a lot of the public just go there and use it. And so it makes it kind of difficult to go kind of take over the space with our youth programs when we have so many residents who want to use that for their own recreation, with those being such small spaces. I think the North 40 would be a great spot to look at to develop some more opportunities.
Mayor,
Thank you.
Mayor,
Thank you. Yes.
would it be appropriate to guide them towards our Parks Committee to help them
a great
figure out
suggestion.
how to spearhead something along those directions?
Great suggestion, and Councilor Horning is our representative, so,
I'll pass that up.
yeah.
the committee.
And do they meet the first Thursday of the month?
Yes, it is. First Thursday, 6 p.m.
Okay,
here at City Hall.
Good.
thank you all.
Good, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Elise Morrison, 1040 South Downing, Unit B. Sorry. I would like to address the situation in regards to the workshop that was held today. Some previous statements were already made. However, I would like to propose a benchmark of 60 days for this. I have begun networking and resourcing with advocates from other states, as well as like Montana, and farmers who are willing to provide substances for like Habitat for Humanity. There's 1.7 million acres of corporate land for sale by a farmer who is going under in the corner side of Seaside right now as we speak, farming their farmhouse included. I am sure there's something that we can do to help our community, help others, as well as start maybe a movement to provide substance and actual help to these people. I don't feel anybody's actually gone out and talked to these homelessness and actually seen what they need, if they're drug addicts, if they're sociopaths, if they need mental health and don't know where to go. So it would entail a couple of things I'm putting together right now to propose to you guys in an agenda to submit, officially. So tonight I would like to propose a benchmark for this topic for 60 days to also allow the community members to get together and decide what they would like to see as a compromise, because obviously this is a conflict of interest that needs to be addressed. Not only do we have the homelessness becoming issues amongst their general area, but also with other local businesses, that is becoming an issue. We can't just turn our back to it anymore. We need to be active about it. We can't just say, let's criminalize these people and have them get back on the streets 30 days after jail, because that's not gonna work for us. We're so far out of city's limits that we're not gonna get help. We need to find help and we can make it. So I have been talking to other people and even local community members who work at Safeway or other local businesses that are willing to participate as community members to do what is like a Habitat for Humanities, but local for Seaside. Networking with other people who are also going out of business that would like to get their, like farmers. There's a lady in Montana that works with farmers to help get their business reconstructed so they can benefit from the profits, not commercialism, so they can capitalize on their own product and not have to be substantiaries of other people's, percentages. Who is also willing to get people to bring farmed goods to our community. So not only to help these people with like a local garden, but also our stores that we can't even get produce. You can't find like the most ridiculous things at Safeway right now, and the only answer is I don't know. But we can solve this, and we can do this a better way. So I'd like 60 days, and in 60 days I'll come back with a legit proposal on paper to provide to the community and to the city council to see if we can find a happy medium. Because right now I've got people willing, and it's gonna take a lot, but we can do this. And we can do this in a manner, it's a 4-year ramp up project, and after 4 years, we haven't succeeded, we can at least say we tried. And then we can go to the formal hands and the firm handed pressure, because we tried. But at least we tried. And right now, we're just arguing. And there's a better way we can do this as a community. So 60 days, I'm gonna come back.
Great, thank you. Habitat for Humanity is a great organization.
And they
we
do
loved it.
more than just out of country. And
Yeah.
right now, we are trying to save our country. So if you reach out to some of these people, and I know some of these owners, some of these nonprofit organizers that know this kind of network that is so ready to help. Not only would this start like a county-wide thing, but this could be a mission for the whole state, which would start the project for the whole country right now, because this isn't just Oregon. It's not just Seaside. We are just getting the trickling effect of what has been going on for years.
Okay, we'll look forward to hearing back from you in 60 days.
And I would like to be in contact with you in that I've been leading our Goal 12 on homelessness.
Okay,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Hi, my name's Peggy. I live in Seaside. I'm happy to provide my address and last name later for verification that I'm legitimate, but I just do not have that on YouTube. One concern I had is this camping ordinance. When I went to look at it myself and share it with some neighbors that I discussed with, I searched the website the best of my capability. And I am not a computer genius, but I could not find the ordinance to be able to look through it and find the specifics.
The
And to me-
proposed ordinance, Peggy, or
I'm sorry, Mayor.
the
what?
proposed ordinance?
Yeah, what,
Oh.
what you read through, I had a friend send me a link so I could look through what all the items were, but I was not able to come up with that. Instead, it was about flushing the water mains and some kind of ordinance with electricity. And to me, this is an issue
wasn't
that's,
it, yeah.
this is an issue that's very important, I think, to our community. Not that water mains aren't, but to me, this should be something that's very readily available, visible, that people know they can give their input. I've had several people tell me they would like to give input, but don't want to be on the actual public record. So if it could be advertised that they could address you, Mayor, or Mark, in a more of a private fashion, I think you get a lot more feedback.
Good.
Also, in regard to the camping ordinance, I'm concerned that there is not a time limit on how long people can park the RVs and cars in their yard. I live in a neighborhood where my neighborhood was almost burned down by a big fire in December of 2015, pardon me, for this very reason. It was in the winter, there were extension cords run out to the RV, and we lost 3 homes and probably could have lost the whole corner of Seaside. So that's very concerning to me. I like the idea of involving community people on the panel that you're going to put together, but I think instead of one community person, you should have at least 2 that fall on either end of the spectrum. Somebody who is very against what's happening there and wants it fixed, like now, and somebody on the other end, because to me it would be nice to have all views represented instead of just, say, if I was chosen, that it would just be my view on that situation. Sorry, I had to make myself a little note. The other thing I wondered is, I had been told that the city has tons and tons of property. And apparently that's not the case.
Oh, no.
So I wanted to verify that. So one thought I had is the property that the vehicles are on currently has to be a fairly valuable piece of property. It's west of the river. It's in fairly close proximity to the beach. It's currently not being used for its intended function, which is a staging area. We've lived without it for 6 months, so we obviously are making use of another area. I would propose that it be sold to a private citizen to develop, and then the city take, hopefully, the generous funds that are accrued from that to find an appropriate area for vehicles to be parked, and perhaps establish another staging area with that. And that would solve that problem effectively and give the city more funds to put toward the quality of the area where we need to help these people. Anyway, that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, if I could make a suggestion, we've just had 2 very good ideas presented, and I would like to invite all of our citizens to submit their ideas to us. They can do that by email, all ideas, because in 10, 100 ideas, there's going to be some kernels there.
Yeah. And we get all of those. Our city clerk sends them all over. Sorry, go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you. Just a procedural question. Under new business, A is process for implementation of a moratorium on the vacation rentals. Is there going to be public comment on that?
Yes, that must have, I stated that before you came in. There will be an opportunity.
sorry.
There will be an opportunity for public
Okay,
comment
great.
on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
I think the student representative there.
Okay.
I mean, after this.
Okay. Any further comments? Yes.
So I'm representing the Seaside Downtown Development Association, Carrie Lambert, 765 4th Avenue. I'm here in Lori's absence tonight, so I took notes. Before that, though, I want to thank Councilwoman Montero for coming and speaking for us, explaining kind of your process here and what you go through as City Council. Not what you go through, but what. She didn't explain that, but the procedure. Just want to let everyone know that the Flower Basket campaign is on. SDDA does 64 flower baskets downtown, and we contract with Nature's Helper for maintaining those baskets. Thank the City of Seaside for hanging them up for us. If anyone's interested in sponsoring the basket program, just get in contact with the SDDA office, myself, Lori Mespel, any of our board members. We can help with that. And then also, walking maps came out today. Seaside Downtown walking maps, we have 15,000 that are going around the hotels and the sponsors. So if anyone has a need for those, let us know.
Great.
And then I would like to switch gears to just as, I guess, manager of Times Theater and abandon the SDDA right now. In July of 2021, we had started talking about the garbage area in the back. I know that there are a ton of issues going on, and Councilor Pazowski really knows what's going on with it. But I just want to remind you all that we have been working on some type of solution for that. It's getting bad again. On Thursday night, we were there till like 12:30 cleaning it up. And I just wanted to bring it up so it doesn't get lost. And I know it's a really expensive situation, but if anyone wonders specifically what I'm talking about, it's a big garbage area below the parking garage, the public parking garage, directly behind the Times Theater, but it's shared by several businesses. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. I think I see someone else moving to the mic. Yes, sir.
My name is Dylan Rickla. I live on 341 10th Avenue, Seaside, Oregon. And I just want to thank you guys for listening to us tonight. And I live a couple blocks away from the new, homeless camp. And, I've seen these guys parking there for the last few years, and they always parked along the river before. Okay. And, it's kind of like that old saying, you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. And so at this point, what I've noticed is, they got that inch and they're just going to keep going. I've been having issues where I've got, transients and they're actually drug dealers from what I've been seeing out of there. And I've been kind of watching it as I go for walks at night, and I walk the perimeter and kind of check everything's out. I'm a local business owner, and I've been trying to look for lots to buy too. So if you guys want to sell some of that, that'd be, I'd love to build a house there. So, like he was saying, you can cater to it, or you can just put a stop to it at some point, and at this point, we keep giving them more. And from what I've seen, there's just more garbage piling around the perimeter. There's more, from what it looks like, there's more people moving in, and now it's getting to where if there was a fire, I don't even think people could get out of there. So it's, at this point, it's getting to a serious OSHA violations, among others. So thanks for listening to me.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
I think I did see Emma Arden, our student rep, come in. Are you here, Emma, back there? There she is. We have a student rep who keeps us apprised of what's happening at Seaside High School, and we're glad to hear from you tonight, Emma.
Is it on? Okay, there we go. It's been a while. How are you
Just
guys
drop
doing?
your mask and then we can hear you better.
There we go.
Okay. So today we had some seniors go down to the Pacific Ridge Elementary School and greet the little kids today. I did have a drive, actually. Where is it at? I might show it next meeting, so you can see some of those pictures. But we did have some ASB members, some seniors go down there, and we actually, for a while with the school move as well as COVID, we had lost the Seaside High School Seagull mascot, but we did recover it. And so the Seagull made a trip down to the Pacific Ridge Elementary School as well. Our next upcoming event for the high school is a dance called Snowball. We were supposed to have it this month, but sadly it got postponed due to the new variant. But fortunately, we are going to be able to have that next month. The high school is starting to implement something new, and it's called a sand dollar. That's what it looks like. Mm-hmm. So lately we've been having troubles with the whole mask thing as well as behavioral problems. So we're hoping that with this being implemented that you receive a sand dollar, and in the end, like once or twice a month, we'll have like kind of a stand open, which you can get candy, snacks, like little fidgets and stuff like that, like toys, or like even hot chocolate. So we're hoping that while implementing this will encourage students to better their activities and better themselves at school, as well as wear their mask right. This will be held usually at lunch, and they'll be ran by ASB. Winter sports have been doing very good. During girls and boys basketball games, we have brought back halftime prizes, which is, I like it, feels normal again. So basically how it goes is that during halftime, between the boys and girls halftime, you donate $1, and with that $1, you get down to the court and you can shoot a free throw. With that, if you make it, you get a prize. Usually it's a gift card, but it differs each week due to what local business likes to donate. That's pretty much about it.
Well, I think that's great. I like the sand dollar idea. Maybe we should implement this in the council here. We could maybe get some prizes here for our behavior. You think that would work, guys? No, thank you so much. I know it's been a tough season for both all of our schools to deal with the COVID and try to keep education going. But from what I hear, spirits are up.
They are.
We're appreciative of you coming in and keeping us surprised.
Of course. I'm hoping next week I'll have a few slides to show you of what's been going on the past few months.
Okay, good. Okay, bring that next time. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emma.
Is any counselor needing to declare a potential conflict of interest
Nope.
on any item tonight? No? I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Now we have a report, an update regarding our Emergency Operations Center. The EOC, Ann McBride, is going to come and give us an update. Evening, Ann.
Hi. Good evening, Mayor, councilors. Thanks for having me. Just want to make sure you can hear me. Is that better? Okay. So we have an alternate emergency operations center, and it's located up above the school. So if you drive up to Pacific Ridge, the next is the high school, and then there's another berm, and that's where they're going to put the bus barn and such. And above that is the EOC. There's a water tank up there. It's called the East Hills Site Water Tank, and then we've put a building up there. So I'm going to show you what we've got going. So first, let's talk about what an EOC is. Everybody has a different opinion. If we went around the table, we would come up with different definitions. It really just is one location where the staff and the city staff, the stakeholders, that might be the police, the sheriff, it might be ODOT, other organizations that help support an incident. So once there's an emergency, they gather together and they make decisions together. And we're just talking about the location right now. So when it's a small, manageable incident, the EOC operates just as a tabletop, for instance. We could have one right now. You might be the representative for, you might be the emergency manager in this situation. And each of us brings something to the table. This is an incident that happened just recently, last Saturday. We were able to meet at a table, talk about what kinds of things we could do to get the people off the beach. That was really our emergency. We knew what time the wave was coming. We knew what kind of wave was coming. We could follow it up the coast. But we knew that as soon as we put out an announcement, everyone was going to go to the beach. So that's what we were trying to circumvent, was anybody playing on the logs, going in the ocean, doing what they immediately do when you tell them not to go to the beach. So that was a small, manageable incident. Once the incident expands, now we have two bodies working on an emergency. We have the incident commander, who is at the scene, right on the front lines, at the battle, deciding, making decisions. And suddenly, they start running out of resources. And so they send that information up to the EOC. Now up there they have a little more time. They're making policy decisions. They're getting logistics. They're looking for making support, planning. School gets out in 10 minutes. What are we going to do? Should we tell the parents? They need more water down there. They need cones. They need to block off a street. They have that logistical support to send what is needed down to that incident command because they're in the weeds, right? And this organization, the EOC, can see clearly because it has all this digital equipment in there to see what's happening. Next page. Okay. And we have an EOC now. It's the primary EOC. It's fully functional. It's at the police station. And we used it just recently. It's nice. It's a great location because it has the police and the dispatch at one location. So dispatch is that's the communication center. That's the nerve center. And the police are there. It's also right downtown. City Hall's right there. The fire's right there. Public Works is there. And so everyone can get there in a timely fashion. And it's right down on the downtown core. But we know that it's not going to withstand the earthquake and the tsunami. And if there was an incident in the downtown core, you'd have to have an alternate, someplace else to go and deal with the emergency. So how did it all start? Well, it started with a groundbreaking at the convention center. And it was, of course, a very large remodel. And so the city purchased a modular building to act as the construction zone's, admin building and headquarters. And you can see it here. Here it is there by the convention center, and it sat there during the operation and during the rebuild. And then once the convention center was completed, it was time to clean up and move around the buildings. And there's our EOC. There it is. The modular building gets moved to the Public Works yard. And so it came over to Public Works. It sat there for a while. And, at about that time, the 2 million gallon water tank was completed up on the East Hills. It is a marvel. It's huge. I mean, if you stand next to it, you can see those stanchions there. It is just a modern marvel. It's 2 million gallons. So while that was being completed, if you look over, you'd see some empty land there, and Dale was like, I've got this in my my parking lot, and it kind of needs to be moved, so we've got a foundation out of that. You can see that there, and it became earmarked for the EOC, and they moved the modular building up there. It's a 1,500 square foot building. It has a lot of potential. You can see that the fire crew, volunteers, put up a Bob-approved ADA ramp. So, going too fast. There we go. It has two sides to it. It's 1,500 square feet, as I said. And this side is going to be the Situation Room, and you can see that it has quite a bit of furniture in there. As the school building was being moved up to the new high school, there was a lot of furniture that was left over at the site on Franklin there. And so Dale was able to grab all the furniture he could. He's done a nice job, and we have some workstations there. We have a conference table. This is kind of be the room where there's going to be a lot of noise, a lot of ideas, a lot of talking. There'll be maps and some TVs up there to show what the situation is, because you always want to know what's happening in the situation so you can make a good decision. Well, this is the B side, and it comes with a R2-D2. So this side is going to be the quiet side. Dispatch will be there. Ham radio operations will be there. Looking at maybe there'll be some restrooms up there. We're waiting for that. The kitchen, maybe a quiet zone so you can make a personal phone call or get some rest if it becomes a longer incident. This is kind of the layout of it. You can see that we have the Situation Room over there, kind of things that we're going to, workstations. There's some storage up there. The police department has brought up MR food items. What are they? MREs, that's it. Okay, so, and there's some water. There's all kinds of supplies up there. So I was up in LC, and I was driving around, and I saw that. And I said, that's just sitting there. It doesn't look like anybody's using it. So I contacted Red Cross and I said, we have a perfect place for that wagon, that trailer. And they said, we just don't know what to do with it. And I said, well, we'll store it and we'll keep it for you. So we gave it to them and they refurbished it and they filled it with all the supplies. And now it's sitting up at that EOC. So it's really well organized. Everything is just labeled. You open the back door and there's the inventory and there's the flashlight. And it says if you need bandages, it's in section C3. You need to point your flashlight right to it, go right to it and grab it. It's really ready to go. And we were able to put some of our own things in there, put some barrels in there and such, and some sanitizer. Forever. So we came into the situation of funding what we needed inside there. We applied for a Homeland Security grant, and we were awarded one of 39 awards in the competitive bid. We were awarded one of them, and we were earmarked $27,000. And that's going to be used for communication equipment between that EOC staff and that ICS staff, so that all the information is flowing between them and they are getting current information on what's happening. So this group came to me and said, Ann, we are Seaside citizens and we really want to help. And this is the STARS radio group, and they have donated so much technology to helping us get a good ham station up there. We'll have UHF and VHF. UHF is the radio that transmits off the ionosphere and comes around the Earth, and that's why you're able to talk to Iceland and Scotland and long distance. So that's very reliable, powerful radio. And then they'll have VHF radios, which is the local ham that we're all familiar with. They donated $4,000 in equipment and just in engineering support, $2,000. So they have really been helpful in helping me get that ham radio station in there. Well, ham radio requires antennas, and so we had 2 80-foot power poles delivered to act as our antennas. They came one day, and they are huge. Here's a great picture of them. Just look at that. They are, imagine one tree and then 2 trees. So very, just interesting. So we had the problem now we have to get them in the ground. And John asked Pacific Power if they'd help us, and they stepped right up and volunteered their time on a very cold Friday morning. They came out and dug a hole. And yeah, awesome. Dug a hole and moved those poles into position. And there they are doing it. What better organization to do it, right? They're just know exactly what to do. And we came up with our 2 poles are now in the ground at the EOC. So this is it is a secure facility. There's a 3rd pole there that's called Mitch's pole, and he has all his emergency equipment, his antennas on there. There's also some cameras for security that can be seen at dispatch, so they can monitor the zone, keep it safe. And there's some real estate there that Dale is already talking about. But it's a great staging area. I visited a lot of EOCs up and down the coast and said, what would you buy? What wouldn't you buy? What are your mistakes? And one of them said, we have no place to park. If we need large vehicles and, if ODOT comes in and brings in stuff that we're going to need, we have no place to store it. So we have that luxury. We have a beautiful view and we're out of the inundation zone, and if you can walk up there, it comes with a free lung. It's quite a walk. Yeah. So there's the final product. Next, we're going to put some lightning rods on the poles, and then some antenna, and finish the completion of bringing the ham radio into the EOC, and then do a little bit of remodel and start ordering equipment that I bid a long time ago, and now things are changing in the market. But we do have 2 years to get that equipment in, so I feel confident we'll get it at the right price.
Wonderful.
And that's my presentation.
Good. Ann, thank you. Any questions or comments for Ann?
Are you going to climb up there and plant the lightning rod on top?
You know it.
It's a
I am
long
definitely going in
ways
that
up there.
lift. Okay.
Thank you. Mark, Mark, I was going to ask you, there was an incident a couple of Saturdays ago or Sunday, which was that?
Saturday.
Saturday.
Last Saturday.
How did it work? You were there.
Yeah, I was. Well, the first phone call came out to me a little bit after 6 o'clock from dispatch that we talk about tsunamis on an ongoing basis, especially in an area like this. But when they started out with a volcano had gone off, when they wake you up in the middle, before you're awake, let's just go there. Before you're really awake and they start out with a volcano went off, I'm not thinking about the right thing. And they quickly got around to the idea that we had tsunami advisory that had come out. We activated right then, and by 7 o'clock, we had 18 people working in the EOC. All of the department heads were there or were available to us, as well as state police. The sheriff was there. One of the things that people don't realize right now is that we are the dispatch center for the entire county. And so that's in the case of an emergency, that is a luxury for us because that's where the sheriff comes. That's where state police show up to is the dispatch center for the county. And we had also wonderful fire representation at the EOC. Cannon Beach Fire was there, Hamlet Fire was there, Gearhart Fire was there, as well as obviously our fire department and police department. So we were able to do a great deal of work, and we quickly realized, and we're getting information, that the only place that this event really could be an event was going to be along the beach. And so all of our resources and priorities were trying to make sure that the beach was as safe a place as we could. But we had a new tool, something that we haven't had in the past. The Hamlet Fire Chief also is very skilled with drones, and that allowed us to fly drones up and down the beach to make sure that we could actually see what was going on the beach. And certainly one of the challenges is we get police and fire down to the beach to warn people to get off. But unfortunately, the minute that people begin to learn that we have an emergency, they want to run down there and see what the emergency looks like. So we're constantly trying to keep people from the beach, and that's a difficult situation for us. But with the drone up in the air, that allowed us to be able to see where people were getting down on the beach, so that we could try to warn them off. But that event was thankfully not an event, and that's the kind of thing that 90% of the time they aren't events, but we still go through all of the work to make sure that we are prepared for something if something should actually materialize. And I've got to commend the people. I was the incident commander in this case, but having said that, that just means that all the other people are doing all the work. I have the responsibility, but they're the ones that are accomplishing all the things that are taking place. And it was great to have all of those people in the room because they very quickly could tell us where our resources were, what actions were being taken. Having the sheriff in that room, we knew what was going on the beach from Arch Cape all the way up to the mouth of the Columbia, and that was certainly advantageous for us to know that all those areas were being addressed throughout the event. So I know that I'm always have people come to me and say, well, I didn't know what was going on. What I will tell the public is that if you go out to our website and go to the emergency section, you can find out how to sign up for things like Nixle and other emergency communications that we push out. I know John and Esther Moberg were working on releases throughout the event so that we were getting information out to the public. It's a matter of the public knowing where it is they need to look. And I would suggest to anybody that if they're interested in seeing that information, that they go out to our website and go to the emergency section, and you can find out how to sign up for these things. And I think it's very important that people do that, because if they're expecting communications from us, it's one of the best ways for them to get that communications. So, Mayor, it was a very successful event because it was a non-event in the end. Yes, we don't know when it's going to be a non-event, so we act throughout until we get to the very end, and we know that thankfully we don't have anything that goes on.
Well, it was a good initiation for the EOC. We're glad that it's there. That makes us a much more safe community to have it there. So even in the worst case scenario, there will be people up there making sure that we're communicated with. So thank you, Ann, and everybody that worked with you in the process. It's a great thing to have in place. Good. Okay, moving on to unfinished business, we have a couple of ordinances that are at the second reading level. We'll start with Ordinance 2201. That's an ordinance regarding utility franchise fees. Mark, you want to make any further comment on that before we open for public comments?
Just very briefly, Mr. Mayor. So this is a franchise agreement with Pacific Power. The city has franchise agreements with all of the utilities, the private utilities in the area. That's so that we can control what those utilities do with our right-of-way. And the reason we have these franchise agreements is because these utilities use our right-of-way, and so we have agreements with them so that they know how they can use our right-of-way, and we can assure the general public that our right-of-way is being used properly by those utilities. So that's the purpose of a franchise agreement. They don't come up very often. A franchise agreement with, in this case, Pacific Power is a 20-year agreement, and this franchise agreement replaces a franchise agreement that had been a 20-year franchise. Unfortunately, Mr. Mayor, I've been here so long that I remember when we did that franchise agreement 20 years ago. I'm not sure that's a plus, though, for me.
Oh, they say as we go older, we remember things in the past much better than the current, so I'm not
It seems like yesterday, Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Great, wonderful. At this time, I'll open the floor to any public comments anyone would like to make about the franchise free. Please, again, identify yourself and your address, please.
Carl Shore, 445 12th. Like every legal contract, there are pages of stuff that I didn't even try to look at. My biggest concern is we pay the highest rate of electricity in the state. What can be done in these situations before granting a 20-year, basically, carte blanche agreement to hold them to task for why they cost so much?
Rates for utilities, and in this case, the power company, are established by the State Utility Commission. We're not involved in establishing their rates. That takes place on a state level. In this case, we're really only managing how they use our right-of-way. We don't have any say in the rates per se.
Good question, though, yeah. Any other public comments? I'll close that portion and ask if there are any council comments. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to read by title only, second reading.
I move that we read Ordinance 2022-01 by title only.
Moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Ordinance 2022-01, ordinance granting an electric utility franchise and general utility easement to Pacific Court within the City of Seaside, Oregon.
Thank you, Dan. This will be on our agenda for third and final and adoption at our next meeting. The next one is Ordinance 2202. That's amending the cemetery regulations for plot price increases. I think we all are aware that it's still the best buy. In fact, somebody, if you want to die, come to Seaside, somebody said. And I said, no, that's not a part of our promotion for the tourism, but it is a beautiful, if you haven't been out to the cemetery, it's amazing. Dale and your team have done a great job of making that a very welcoming place. And so it's time for us to make these rates a little more competitive. Mark, do you want to make any further comments on that?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I think you've just about said everything that there is to say. Our current rate...
Maybe too much.
Yeah, our current rate for a plot is $500, which is, as you said, very cheap. And not that we're trying to increase the price of dying, but it is a very low rate for a cemetery plot. We think it's really the only revenue source, if you will, for the cemetery. And we think that raising it from $500 to $750 is appropriate. Most cemeteries charge several $1,000s for a cemetery plot, and for us to be able to continue to maintain the cemetery, it's important that we have some revenue that comes in for it.
As we said at our last meeting, it's not the price of the plot so much as it is the perpetual care that's helping to finance that as well. At this point, I'll open the floor to any public comments regarding the increase of the plot price. Anyone? Seeing none, I'll close the public comments and ask if the council has any comments. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve by title only, second reading.
I'll move that we read Ordinance 2022-02 by title only.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. That motion carries.
Ordinance number 2022-02, an ordinance of the City of Seaside, Oregon, amending Chapter 91 of the Seaside Code of Ordinances regarding evergreen cemetery regulations.
Okay. This will be on the agenda for third and final reading and adoption at our next meeting. Moving on to vacancies in our boards and committees and commissions. We have several people that have applied, and so our business tonight would be to nominate these people that have applied. For the library board, we have one vacancy and one application.
Megan Hughes.
You want to nominate on there?
Megan Hughes.
Yes.
So I nominate Megan Hughes for application to the library board.
Okay.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
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 Same. Motion carries. So all of you to know that we nominate first, then we do an interview with them, and then the council votes to appoint or not to. And then with the city tree board, we have one vacancy, but no applicant for that. It's
And
a
that one's so
great committee.
exciting.
So we're looking for someone who would like to serve on the city tree board. For the budget committee, we have one vacancy and two applications, Stephen Dillard and Kathy Klezak. I'd like to nominate either one or both?
I would nominate Stephen Dillard.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. The motion carries.
And I would nominate Kathy Klezak.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. Motion carries. The Airport Commission, we have 2 vacancies and 1 application. Randy? you wanna-
Yeah, so Mark Tolan, I think, would be a good person on there, and I'll nominate him.
He's already been nominated.
Oh,
We
he
did
He's been-
is.
yeah.
He was at our last meeting, that's
We
right.
can
yeah.
appoint
We just haven't interviewed.
Yeah. So we
Set
just
up.
need to set
We'll
up
have
the
Kim
interview.
set up an interview.
The Transportation Advisory Commission has 1 vacancy and 2 applications. Tracy McDonald and Brent Solari. And Council
We-
President, you found some concerns regarding
Yeah,
Brent's application.
There is opportunity for 1 non-Seaside resident to be on that, but we already have somebody in that position, so I'm afraid Mr. Solari is not available.
Not eligible for
Not
that.
eligible.
Yeah.
So I'll nominate Tracy McDonald.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, the same? Great. Wonderful. Well, those are important to get done and have in place, so wonderful, thank you. Moving on, we have a contract before us that we basically have approved. It just needs to be council action to approve the recruitment for our city manager to sign that contract. I'll entertain a motion to approve the contract with Jensen and Associates.
So moved.
Mark,
Second.
do you want to say something?
Well, Mayor, you certainly can do this without me saying anything about it, but I would like to take this opportunity, and I'll probably do it 2 or 3 more times before I get to the end of my career, but I'd like to thank the council and the people of Seaside for allowing me to serve this city. It has truly been an honor. I'm in my 37th year with the City of Seaside, and thankfully I haven't been the city manager all that time, but I have worked for the city for 37 years, and it truly has been an honor. And Mr. Mayor, I'm happy that you're working your way through replacing me at this point.
Well, you've given us that direction, so we are working on it. So we have a motion and a second to approve the contract for the search. Any further discussion or comments? Hearing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. All right. Under new business, we began a discussion, the process for implementing a moratorium in the city of Seaside regarding vacation rentals. Before we call on Kevin Couples to speak to us to talk about the process, Tita has an opportunity to make a statement.
Yes, a letter has been circulated from the Northwest Vacation Rental Professionals and Via Oregon. And to quote one of the sentences, Tita Montero should be recusing herself from all further discussions on vacation rentals due to her family's vested financial interests. Vacation rentals are in direct competition with hotels inside the hospitality industry, which the Montero family holds financial interests. First of all, I do not have a conflict of interest. My brother has business interests in the lodging industry. He owns hotels, motels, restaurants, a caterer, a grocery store, commercial rental property, and several multi-unit apartments, and a VRD. I am one of 5 siblings in the Montero family. None of the siblings in our family have any interest in any of our brother's businesses. We have never been employed in them. We have no input. We have no inside information. I have no financial interest and no financial gain from that. So I would not be recusing myself, and I will ask the city attorney to address that in a minute. On the heels of that, I want to address a quote that came out. The city council is going to vote on the shutdown January 24th at 7 p.m. A moratorium is not a shutdown. I get the sense that many people are assuming that a moratorium implies a reduction of the number of VRDs and or a reduction in the number of VRD nights allowed. Let me clarify what I mean by a moratorium and what I support. A moratorium refers to a pause for a finite time. I support a moratorium pause on the issuance of new VRD licenses for no more than 1 year. There has never been any consideration of rescinding any current VRD licenses, nor do I favor such a move. For me, the purpose of the moratorium is to provide time for the city, elected officials, staff, business owners, residents, to get a handle on the state of the city, produce accurate data to answer our concerns, and determine an optimum number of permits to allow if a cap is placed. If such is adopted, I would want to legislate a required periodic review of any capped system. An outcome of collecting the data will be an improved data system which can be used to forecast and evaluate. During the moratorium, I would envision a task force that reviews the current system, e.g., the history of how ordinances, processes, etc., have changed since the permitting of VRDs began. How many second homes are licensed to be VRDs? How many VRDs could exist if the density reached maximum in all areas? As well as the questions posed during the November 29th, 2021 workshop. I would support establishing a waiting list for those who are looking to obtain a VRD permit during the time of the moratorium, listing in first come, first serve order after the moratorium, which may be less than a year, depends on how the work goes, serve order. I am not opposed to VRDs. As a former Seaside retail business owner, tourism committee member, SDDA board member, and chamber president, I am very aware of the importance of attracting visitors who are also happy to return. So, I'm putting that into the record. Dan, could you address this, please, for us?
Yes, you sent me an email today, and I was drawn to this. I've looked at, so the record shows that I have looked at correspondence to the city council members from Northwest Vacation Rental Professionals, and I received tonight also a copy of correspondence from your brother, William Montero, indicating what his interests were, businesses generally speaking. Frankly, in the correspondence from Northwest Vacation Rental Professionals, the suggestion is that I can see is that you should recuse yourself because of the family vested financial interests. And certainly the letter from your brother indicates this, council. I have no reason to believe him, is that you have absolutely, nor do any of the siblings have any interest in his family businesses. They're his, and so quite frankly, I don't see any basis for any conflict of interest. My only question of it is, because they suggest that maybe you're biased, they don't tell me how it is that you are. They don't show me correctly any conflict. If you believe you can be objectionable or objective and not objectionable, excuse me.
I'm that often.
That you certainly can participate.
Well, I certainly can be objective.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Mayor,
As we go through the...
Mayor?
Yes.
I'd also like to address something that is in the packet.
Okay.
My name and picture were used in one of the reports in there, basically saying that I had volunteered to be on a task force. I'm asked by members of the community at many different times if I would help them deal with certain issues or bring it to the council, and answering in the affirmative somehow landed me in here, but it does not in no way does it put me in a position of agreeing with any of the assertions or directions that are in that report, just that I would be willing to serve on a task force to develop guidelines around vacation rentals.
Sure. Good. Thank you, David. So, Kevin, as you begin to address us, here's how I'd like to go through this. I'd like to hear fully your report on the process so that we understand that clearly. Then in our packet and for public view, we have a comment from representatives of a business group regarding the moratorium coming from the chamber. And I've asked Brian Owen, the executive director, for he and one other person representing that group to address us regarding their concerns. And then also we've received a number of written statements, all at this point in support of really looking at the potential of a moratorium. I wanted you to know that those are on record. And then there will be opportunity for public comment. And after all of that, there will be the opportunity for the council to comment or discuss or debate. So, Kevin, you have the floor.
Okay, Mayor and City Councilors, I don't know, can you hear me fine with my mask on, or do you want that off?
It'd be better if it was off.
Okay.
Yeah,
you had asked during the joint work session, both you and the Planning Commission were interested in considering a moratorium, and I discussed that process with Dan just to make sure that he and I were both on the same page in that regard. And what you're looking at doing is a standard ordinance amendment in order to establish that time period. You've got a couple of things that you need to consider when we get ready to do any type of ordinance amendment, especially one that is going to be creating a more restrictive requirement. Although it's not standard to be considered a quote-unquote zone change under state statute, it actually is called out that way. If you're making a more restrictive regulation for land use actions, you've got to do what's called a Ballot Measure 56 notice. So that notice would be mailed to anyone who has property that would be affected by that restriction. One of the things that we didn't really get into the nuts and bolts of where you would limit vacation rentals with the moratorium. If in fact you weren't going to consider that for the RR zone, then we would want to know that, because, and it's like, well, if you over notify and you decide later when when you're in the process of actually doing the actual amendment, if you back off from that, that's fine. So if you over notify, you're okay. I would rather not notify all the people in the RR zone if that's not your intent, but that's something that you would have to specify in order for staff to really put something into an ordinance format that would meet that notification requirement. We will have to give them basically the ordinance, and it's probably not going to be very, very lengthy. It's probably going to be pretty straightforward and simple. I don't think you have to add too much language to the comp plan, depending on which path you follow. But it's mainly just a matter of providing the notice. We've got to provide notice to the Department of Land Conservation and Development. That's got a time frame. The Measure 56 notice has a time frame. Understand that staff's going to have to, actually get all the mailing addresses for all the people that are in the zone that they're affected under. And so that would be just a time constraint on staff when they get ready to actually do the notice. One thing that I did discuss with Dan, when Ballot Measure 37 and later 49 came into effect, we adopted an ordinance, Chapter 160 in the Seaside Code of Ordinance, which addressed claims. Because if in fact you do put in a more restrictive requirement on people, they can come back and say, well, you took away my property right and now it's cost me. And there's a whole process for them to do that. That was created when Chapter 160 was put into the ordinance. But just know that if you ultimately pass a moratorium and then someone says, hey, you took away my property right in order to do that, this has really cost me dollars, and they can prove it, then you've got the option of basically waiving the requirement or paying the cost of what they lost in value. And so I guess during this same process, you would want to be which is an easier process. Chapter 160 is a lot easier to change than your zoning ordinance comp plan, only because it's doesn't have the same notification requirements. But that would be something that you'd want to update, is that Chapter 160. I think when we first put that into effect, I think we used an example from, it was probably offered by the League of Oregon Cities, and I'm sure they probably have one that would follow Measure 49, but you'll definitely want that to follow at least the same speed as you're getting ready to amend the zoning ordinance and comp plan in order to address a moratorium. And so I just basically outlined the process that Dan and I talked about. It's a standard post-acknowledgement plan amendment process, and it's pretty much what we do anytime you amend the ordinance. It's the same process we used when we put the ADU provisions in. And that's it, and I'll answer any questions if you have any.
So, Kevin, let me ask this. This would be a temporary measure, as we're considering it at this point. Do all of those provisions apply if it's temporary?
Yes, because you're still amending the ordinance, you're still taking away that potential right. Now, what it would probably do with a 365-day requirement, however we go about wording that, because you'll want it to be fluid enough so that when you put it in, it is going to last for a year. Mm-hmm. And so we'll just be careful with the language from the passage of that ordinance. It'll have a time frame on it. What it'll do is it may limit the ability for someone to file a claim under Chapter 160 or the son of 160, whatever that becomes, only because it's a shorter time period. They can't say, well, I've lost this right to operate or potentially operate a vacation rental for the next 15, 20 years. Well, it's really 365 days. Is it worth the, and I can't tell you what it would be worth or how much it would cost to actually do the justification to show that. I don't know what that's going to cost. So that might weed some of those out, but that people do interesting things. So,
okay, other questions from the council?
I have a question in that a VRD permit, vacation rental dwellings are conditionally permitted in certain zones. When it says conditionally permitted, and you talk about the property right, it sounds like the property right is a guarantee to get a VRD permit.
I think,
how does that juxtapose with conditionally permitted?
I think they would, in putting together a justification for a claim, they would be arguing on the case that you took away my ability to even apply for that. And had I got that approved, I mean, they're going to be basing it on something like that.
I see. So I guess I'm understanding that we approve most permit requests?
Yes.
Okay. And
right. I mean, right now, well, let me back off from that. With the policies that were put into place to limit potential applications, there are lots of people in the city that when they call up and say, I want to apply for this, we say, you're not in the area where the Planning Commission and City Council will support vacation rentals. It doesn't say in our ordinance that they're prohibited in there, and they can still apply. So far, I've only had one applicant go ahead and apply, and their request was denied. Has that ever been challenged with an appeal that went all the way up to LUBA? No, it hasn't. Could it be? Yes. But right now, we're seeing with the 50% and the 40% limitations, depending on where you're at, whether you're basically on the oceanfront area. And that's why I tried to put some of that into the memo, just as a reminder. And then Jeff had already put together which you had reviewed that, I think, at the joint work session. But the policies that are in place right now that limit who can apply with a chance of getting approved, that's different than it being denied. But it's basically saying if you apply for this, you're not going to get it, which is kind of what I do with a lot of variances are relatively tough to justify. And I probably convince people that they're going to be wasting their time if they're applying for a variance. In maybe 80% of the ones that come in, there's very few that get supported. If I think there's a way that they can justify it, fine, I'll tell them. But if you're in a vacation rental 50% area or 40% area, and Jeff runs the numbers, which he can do right now really quick. If he comes out and he says, no, you're in 41%, it's going to be dead on arrival. We share him with that, and we're just starting to see that compression come up. Now, as soon as a house goes up for sale, basically, we're getting phone calls. Hey, can it be? And we let them know. No, it's over, or it's not over yet.
Right, right.
So Kevin, a question. How many viable new applications do you have, like, pending or on the desk?
I think Jeff probably has that number, but he put together a really good document that actually showed the over a 5-year period. I think it was a 5-year period. He's got the rating of the number of, because you would ask those questions, the number of total VRD applications, and then the ones that were previously licensed versus the ones that are lost. And when you look at the 2021, now granted, we probably lost some extra in 2021 simply because the price went up, and the people who were kind of just keeping the license to keep it in the family and they never rented, well, a lot of those probably went away. So we lost 39 licenses. There were 42 requests, but 39 of them went away. So and a number of those were relicensed. So to me, those aren't really new licenses. It's not an additional vacation rental on the list. It's just being relicensed because the new owner decided to do the same thing the prior owner was doing. But I have to compliment Jeff on putting together the memo that he did, because it was, and he even tried to answer the looking block by block and looking at aerial photos. He was doing an estimate of, well, how many vacation rentals could you actually get within this area? And the number that he provided is kind of deceptive, because it's how many are potential without taking any of the percentages into consideration. So
I wondered about that.
And it probably wasn't taking into account the ones that would not be eligible because of the amount of space that's yard.
Actually, that's one thing that he was trying to look at. Yeah, okay. He was, and we both said, well, this is like an impossible task. We can't give you the exact on it, but we'll give you a ballpark, and that's what he did. So yes, he actually looked at it and said, well, that one's not going to work, that one's not going to work. But he didn't go through and say, well, that's a vacation rental, now let's do the percentage for that block. He didn't do that for the whole area, but he did come up with the number of what he thought the max could possibly be, given that they would meet it, before you consider any reduction based on the number of percentages around there. And so if you start to apply the percentage to that, just like in most of the R2 zone, that's really not, the RR zone is different because the RR zone doesn't have any density on it. But that's because motels are outright permitted in it. Right. But and I in what I put together under the recommended motion, I wanted to make sure that you were really looking at 1 year, and that you were looking at including the RR, and just know that if in fact you pass this, there may still be more vacation rentals that come in, but it's going to be based on a valid Chapter 160 claim, and I'm assuming you're going to waive it unless Mark can pull up special money to pay those off. It would probably be, and it wouldn't be a lot, but there would still be some that would be in.
So in your memo to us too, you said that this was based on concerns on an adverse impact on the affordability and availability of housing in the city of Seaside. I can see affordability, but I do not have a concern about the availability of housing. I think that we have 3 kinds of housing here. We have the housing that people live in full-time. We have the housing that people have bought and they're second homes, and they may stay in them occasionally, but they can be renting them out as well. Many people with second homes do not rent out at all. And then we have houses that are purchased simply for the purpose of being a VRD. And my personal belief is that the houses that are usually second homes that are VRDs, first of all, those have no impact because they're second homes. People are usually keeping those for their eventual full-time use. But the houses that are purchased more to be just VRDs, I believe that they are in such expensive houses that they really do not affect the availability of housing for full-time residents in Seaside. So, especially as we look at workforce housing, et cetera. So, so I don't think that that's a negative about VRDs.
So Kevin, reiterate for us again, if this council decides to move toward a moratorium, what are the steps that we would need to take to do that?
You would make the motion that was identified in the memo, saying that you want to basically direct staff to create the ordinance necessary to establish a one-year moratorium on new vacation rentals and make the necessary changes to the comp plan. I'll stick that into ordinance format. That'll be what gets referenced, and I'll review it with the mayor and council president to make sure that I got everything right. But getting that in on, getting an ordinance actually drafted that would then become part of that notification process, that's you getting it started.
Okay, good.
And then, I mean, you're looking at a proposal. It's not, you haven't adopted a moratorium by creating an ordinance, just like your camping ordinance.
Yeah.
It's a potential. What you do with that when you finally review it is completely up to you.
Yeah, good.
And you'll have planning commission. It'll go to the planning commission first as a recommendation. They're the ones who are going to be first to hear it. They're the ones that have to have the 35-day prior notice to DLCD. And then when everything's all said and done, if there's an adoption, then that'll go to the department as well.
I don't think I got that far.
Okay, Kevin, you'll still be here. There may be other questions, but we do have a report from, as I indicated earlier, from a group of business people regarding the potential moratorium. Brian, you can come to the table all the way up here if you'd like. Yeah. Please.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Please identify yourself.
Brian Owen, Seaside Chamber of Commerce and resident of the city. 764 3rd Street or 3rd Avenue. Just purchased the house, so finally happy about that. I appreciate what I've heard tonight. I appreciate that that there has been more thought around bringing people together and talking about potential issues within a moratorium, within the business sector, within the values of land, and so on. One thing that did not make it into the packet is a letter from Orla. May I present this to the board?
Sure.
Or the council? Sorry.
Yeah, certainly.
Thank you.
Let's pass it down so you don't use up your time.
So tonight I just wanted to kind of highlight a few things. You guys have the packet. You have the work that our group did on values, on density. I also want to talk about kind of Seaside. We started out as a destination location. Our city was built upon travel. Our city was not built upon manufacturing or logging or any other farming sectors. We were created as a destination location. As a matter of fact, the Daddy train basically stopped almost where we're at here now. Over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of new regulation, a lot of new policy put in on this sector, on this conditional use of VRD properties. It's probably the most comprehensive and I believe usable policies that I've seen in any area, any county, any city. We have set forth that we are not expanding our VRD opportunities. We've created density caps of 40% in certain area and 50% in a certain area. We didn't have that prior. I really would like the council to allow these policies to work, to continue to grow. We have a new compliance officer. We have somebody that is designed, that is employed, that is actively working on any type of issue, on any type of complaint. And we've heard fantastic things about what this compliance officer has done, both at the city level or city staff level, but also at the VRD ownership level. To place a moratorium right now, I think really does send a negative message. And I think that we can do everything that we're talking about without putting a moratorium in place. We don't have a backlog of applications. We don't have anything that I can see as an emergency, unless somebody hasn't communicated that to me yet. I would really like to ask that rather than putting in a moratorium and spending that time and effort, potentially with legal issues such as we're seeing in Lincoln County, we're seeing potentially up here in Clatsup County, those are all expensive cases that we would be having to defend on the city level. I would like us to create that task force that looks at all sides, that gives us the ability to work better together, that everybody has a voice, and also that we can improve the policies that we already have. I would love to see a standard of care policy. I would love to see actually a little more strength within property care. But we need to talk about those type of things. If there is an emergency that we have to stop something right now, I'd like that spelled out. I'd like to know why that is such a need right this moment. I'd really like to make sure that our 2019 data is accurate. Our city does not have, from what I've been hearing, the correct or the software to give us the answers that we've been asking for. Let's spend that time creating that. Let's use this task force to create that. But at this point, I really do ask that we don't put a moratorium on something unless you can really show us that there is an emergency, that something is dire. With that, questions or?
Any comments or questions to Brian? I think we've heard your comment clearly. Brian, please stand by in case there are more questions.
Definitely. Thank you very much.
Was there anyone else that was going to speak for?
Mr. Tolan from...
Okay.
Hi, my name's Mark Tolan. I own Seaside Vacation Homes. I live in the 454 Fairway Court and own the office building at 524 North Roosevelt. Brian and I work together on policy and mindset of what it is that the business community is looking for and needs from City Council, from our elected leaders. And in the process, I also communicated across our country with other managers in other areas who have gone through the same situation, where we have resort towns with $1 million homes.
Speak right into that, Mike.
Where we have resort communities with $1 million homes, and then we have a need for affordable housing. And we ask our questions, Do we have affordable housing next to, $1 million chalets on the slopes of Vale, or are they a little bit farther off the slopes and where the land is more reasonably developed? And what does that look like from a policy standpoint? When talking to contractors in our area, many of them voiced similar concerns regarding the way in which they're able to get their projects through, the red tape and the challenges. And so I think from a mindset where it looks like communities have come together and been successful is by working within task force on specific goals. And so as we've been, again, bouncing off what does success look like in this process, we're looking for that kind of collaboration. One of the things that was most offsetting is how this hit us all sideways. So many families put food on the table in the wintertime through vacation rentals. When the tourists go home and they're not here to schedule the service, property managers do. And we all have our local and trusted vendors, our plumbers and our electricians and our landscapers and our roofers. And these people know we're going to put work aside for them in the wintertime on homes that otherwise are going to be sitting empty. The idea that our homeowners are not using our other homes, that's an absolute fallacy. They absolutely are using their homes. Some of my owners are using their homes far more than the guests. And so the way in which the intent of our current policy has been sculpted, we have Kevin to thank for, and we have Mark Winstanley to thank for. As these two guys are retiring, I wanted to take a second to really applaud their efforts in shaping our city. I came in 2006, interning for my uncle, and I bought my business in 2008, right before the decline, right? And it's through Mark Winstanley's leadership, when we were watching our numbers go sideways, that we said, hey, I think we're gonna make it through. This guy knows what he's doing. He's put money aside and he's thinking it through. And in that same time frame, I'm learning how to run this business, partially through my uncle, but also partially through Kevin, because I'm trying to figure out what I can and can't do as I'm trying to grow the inventory. Oddly enough, the moment I started taking on employees, I stopped making money. I've never made as much money as I had before I had employees, but I kept on reinvesting in my business with the mindset that there's a quality of life that can come through good policy. Good policy from Winstanley, good policy through couples. If I could take a second real quick and applaud those two, because I know they're both retiring, for teaching me and supporting me. I think the community really owes a debt of gratitude to you guys.
Be sure to address your concerns about the moratorium directly, please. Yeah.
This is bad policy. It is bad policy with bad intent. There was never any collaboration with business owners on how it would hurt our business or where the status of our business is post-COVID. Twice now in 2 years, I've come in front of you to ask, please give me the right to work. Not just my vacation rental company, but my furniture showroom was shut down while you could go up to Costco and Fred Meyer's and buy a couch. We lost so much oceanfront inventory. We've had so much high-value inventory sell. As you're aware, the real estate market has been crazy. I've lost 30% of my earning potential. And here I've been reinvesting in a program that is community first. Our mission statement is to provide irreplaceable service that enhances the lives of our guests, our owners, and our community. I've reinvested in doing the right thing. I'm now rebuilding my business. You guys are cutting me off in the knees by now not allowing me to sign new contracts to refill the inventory that I've lost. And it's gonna be a while, but I don't have these fish. These big fish don't swim down the river very often. It has to be a certain type of person who's gonna allow some stranger to sleep in their beds, who's willing to trust me with the keys to their $1 million home. And you're telling me I can't sign up a $1 million home? Really? It's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow. It's hard for my vendors that know how much I work to support them as well. I hope you'll take the business community's request seriously. We're all asking you, please don't do this to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So at this time, we're going to open the floor to public comments. We don't want to hear a lot of repeated same things. We want to hear what you have to say. So please identify yourself, give us your name, your address, and keep your comments within 4 minutes, please. Please come to the microphone there.
Hello, thank you for your time. My name is Ron Jaber. I own Coast Heating and Cooling here in Seaside.
Yeah.
And I'd just like to speak on behalf of contractors. As a roving repairman who goes from one house to another, I can tell you a moratorium on vacation rentals is basically going to be a moratorium on legal business. I go into houses all the time that do not have a vacation rental license. They rent them out to friends for a donation. You need to keep it legal. You need to keep it above board. We count on these properties to keep us busy year-round. We get a lot of business in the tourist season, which is very short, but I count on these properties to generate income so they can keep us employed in the wintertime as well. Without these vacation rentals, I would lose half my employees. When we did have that shutdown when COVID first started, we got a taste of what it's like without tourists down here. I got to look at my wife and say, we may lose our house. Along with my employees. We need these vacation rentals. We need the income. We need to keep them legal and above board and regulate them. But if you have a moratorium on vacation rentals, you're just going to have people renting them out illegally. And then you can kiss your tax money goodbye as well.
Okay, thank you, Ron.
Jay, from his comment, could I just make this statement again, that a moratorium is not eliminating current VRDs?
Okay, you'll have an opportunity
Okay.
later to say more about that. Yes, please. Yes, yeah.
I said,
Okay, yeah,
I've been eating all day and I don't want to end up on the floor.
You're fine.
I've eaten a little bit. But
okay. Good, good. That's fine.
Aaron Barker, I do have beach house vacation rentals. I do have beach property management. My office address is 800 North Roosevelt. I live at 2300 Lewis and Clark. I've had the benefit of having been here since 1999 and going through planning commission meetings for 20 years. I gotta say, all this time I've been through all these meetings with all these rule changes. I can tell you, I get the Google alerts. I see that other cities that are struggling with this, and cities that would surprise me because they've been resort areas, they're just now, right now, talking about what kind of rules do we need to have. We've been having these rules for 30 years and revising them. I've told people, we actually have a moratorium. We have a dividing line in town. When did that happen? 2008. Why did that happen? That happened because as the real estate prices were going through a surge, people looking for their second homes were looking further east. And right away, the city said, we want to recognize this is where the workforce housing is. This is where the full-time people live. And they made that as a policy so they didn't have to go through the ordinance. It said as a matter of policy, since these are conditional use permits, this is the way we're going to function with this. So that's pretty much been the rule since. And then more recently, in the last couple of years, every single property has its own little moratorium. I would let you know that the reason why Jeff gets all these phone calls when a property goes on the market, not because people are chomping at the bit these are realtors calling. They want to be informed when their clients ask them, hey, I'm looking at a house. I might be interested in renting it short-term as addition to my family's weekend home. We just had one on 12th Avenue. I was one of those people that called because I said, okay, it's a good time of year to do this because we're not already booked out, but I'm going to need to know about these pending reservations that I still have good time to cancel. Is this eligible? The answer was, and it turns out these people bought the home and they moved in, but the answer was, it would be eligible because you're right at that limit. So it's capped. Every property has its own private little cap. That's a moratorium. I don't know what else we're trying to address. Moving on quickly, on the permanent rental side, you may not be aware of it. I manage 168 roughly permanent rentals and maybe 63 short-term. So I know what's going on with those permanent rentals. Nobody's moved in 2.5 years, not because of any vacation rental issue, because the state has a moratorium, and rightfully so. Nobody's been able to be evicted, so nobody has moved in 2.5 years. Even families that I want a 2-bedroom now because my kids are out and I don't need that. Families could literally switch places and make those moves, but they can't because nothing comes up for rent. Nobody has moved, and it's not because of anything to do with vacation rentals. So I do not see with the fabulous regulation that other towns are crafting their rules now based on, when I look at Havasu, Hilton Head in South Carolina, they're pretty much looking at their proposals. This is very much, they've looked to us as an example. So I don't know what a moratorium is going to try to answer. If I've got a toothache, I'm not going to go to the podiatrist to diagnose it. They're just not in the same arena. I don't know what the benefit would be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Either place. Yeah, good.
Thank you. My name is Dylan Ricola. I own Pacific Plumbing and Mechanical. There's a couple different factors that I want to bring to you guys' attention. One, we got a loss of revenue, not just for the city, but for so many people. Another thing I've noticed is as I go through all these houses in Seaside and I work on them, there was a period of time you can look at when a homeowner special put the work into the house and when they had a professional come in and do the work on these houses around here, which I've worked on so many of them, and I've seen how people come through and try to flip them really quick, but when doing so, they have an uncertified person working on these houses, and it ends up producing so many problematic just for whether it's a OSHA violation, a code violation, something going wrong. But I've had so many issues where people just didn't have the money to pay for a professional to put the time and the work into these properties that are all around us. And now that these vacation rentals are going strong, it's brought so many people to another level, whether a middle class, and it's already given so many people the amount of money and revenue to reinvest into these properties. So it looks a lot nicer, and a lot of these properties, I'm putting a lot of time and effort and proper licensed contracts. So in a sense, it seems like it's a lot more pros than cons, and there's already so many laws in act. I say we work with the laws that we have in act with it and try to, shave off the fat and try to make everything work great instead of just, doing away with it. So that's just my 2 cents. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for
your comment. Yes. Yes, sir.
Vinny Lucardo, 579 South Wahana. I'm a terrible public speaker, so I'm going to read from this piece of paper for you guys.
You're good. You're good.
I would just like to start by saying that I thank everyone for being here today to discuss such an issue. In the summer of 2017, I visited Seaside for the very first time for the 4th of July weekend. This was an amazing experience and one that drove me to decide to uproot my entire life in Atlanta, Georgia, and relocate my family to Seaside, Oregon. We had never visited a place that welcomed us as tourists with such open arms and a loving local community that just felt like home to us. It was an easy decision to move here and invest our future into Seaside. It is that sole fact that makes me so disturbed to sit here to hear a city council vote to initiate a moratorium on VRD permits. I have read in the public workbook for today's session some disturbing opinions and plans that I see as it are focused on eliminating or severely limiting owners' rights to their land while simultaneously trying to create affordable housing by driving down property values. On the East Coast, our city council and tourist-driven communities did not have these entitlements to impose procedures and legislature directly driven to keep property values down while stripping owners' rights from them. In relocating from the East Coast to a tourist-driven community, I never expected to find affordable housing in a beachfront location. The drive to be in Seaside for my family was that there was a strong common balance of family-oriented businesses and environments while also catering to and welcoming tourists with open arms. I want to invest in Seaside, but I need to know that my city council supports me as a homeowner and will not be working to create such policy that could potentially suppress my home's value. I would ask that you please consider all aspects of life and the well-being of all Seaside citizens when placing your vote to uphold this moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Very good. Now's the time.
Victoria Fuller, street address 361 Hilltop Drive. I am one of the dreaded VRD owners. My parents bought their house in 1969, and it's been a rental ever since. I at first thought the hiring of Jeff Flory would be awful, and it's actually been great. So just a few statistics that I asked him for, so I'm sharing them. He can correct me if I have gotten them wrong. So he has found 25 vacation rental units operating without permits, and there's various avenues to go when they were discovered, but it seems that he's taking care of and getting rid of these units that are not either paying their permits or they just haven't rented. I had a couple other questions for him. I'm not sure our exact count on a number of rentals, but I said there's over 400 rentals. In the last 2 years, how many rentals have received a complaint? He said 57. Which my husband, the math major, says is 14%. I think that's not terrible. My next question was, how many have had 3+ violations in the last year? You ready? 2. So there are some people who think the vacation rentals are a scourge on a neighborhood. Now, perhaps people aren't reporting their complaints. They just grumble. Well, I encourage you to report any that are not adhering to neighborhood standards. On the other hand, there's the argument about needing housing. Do we need housing? Oh man, we seriously need housing. So the Clatsup County Board of Commissioners has issued a report. Its dates, the final report came from 2019, Clatsup County Housing Strategies Report. I encourage the public to read that. There is also, has been discussion by the Clatsup County Board of Commissioners about short-term rentals. Letters were received from the public. I encourage people to read the letter by Amber Geiger Morgan, who gives some interesting comments about how the attempt to do a moratorium in Palm Springs was received. Other than that, I just want to say that there are serious housing issues. There is no doubt about that. No one is going to be renting my house in the Cove that is a service worker. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. Yep. But we do need to look at the areas where land can be developed. I'm not a construction person. I don't know how to work with the contractors and the developers, but there have to be towns in America, smaller towns, that are grappling with the similar housing issues, and maybe there's some out there with solutions. So I'm hoping that everybody on the council and in the public will help to find those solutions. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Victoria.
Good evening. My name is Shelley McKinney, 1541 Leo Way. As of today, Aaron has 70 vacation rentals, of which I have met every single owner. Every single owner has came and stayed in their property. They do not use their homes for just vacation rentals. The majority, well, all of them have come down even within the last year. Their families use their homes. They are not strictly used for tourism. Thank you very much. They're not strictly used for income properties. The people who own these homes use their homes on a regular basis, and they take pride in their homes. They take pride in using the local craftsmen to refurbish their homes during the winter time. They make sure that we use local people to take care of their furnace, their carpets, their water issues, their electrical issues. They make sure that we don't call people from Portland if we don't have to. They want to make sure that they put all of their money back into the community. So that is an invalid concern. If that's what's on your mind, get it out now, because that's not what's going on. One of the things that was brought up was temporary moratorium, so you could get a count or a real feel of what is going on with the rentals. I think that that's something that you should probably already have your finger on. That's something that you should already know what's going on. You shouldn't have to put a moratorium on to get that accomplished. The new officer that you just hired, give him a spin, let him do his job, let him find out what he can do. As the previous lady stated, there aren't that many complaints, not that many valid complaints. Obviously, there's going to be complaints that aren't valid, but in the report that I read, there weren't that many that were actually founded. So let's give our compliance officer a chance to do his job and see what he can do. That's pretty much all I got to say.
Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, I think we're hearing a pretty clear message from those of you that are here tonight. So thank you for that. I do, we've missed you. I have to say this. We have not had a room full of citizens at a city council meeting for 2 years.
And you all deserve a round of applause.
Yeah. And it's been good. And we don't have it. I'm sure John could almost tell us how many are logging in online. And so we've gotten good participation using online as well. So at this point, we want to give the council an opportunity to debate this, discuss this, to determine if we want to take another step, whether we want to continue to consider what has been presented to us tonight and put this on the next agenda. I need to know from the council, what are your thoughts? So, David, why don't you start on your end and we'll just kind of go up the line.
Happy to. Thank you, Mayor. We came out of our workshop in November with the idea or the communication that we were getting from our constituents that VRDs were out of control. It was growing like a wildfire. It was taking over everywhere. And the information that we didn't have at that time that I had requested from Jeff Flory was, what is our net increase each year? And we got that information in his report. And it looks like over the last 7 years, our net growth was 13 vacation rentals total. So a little under 2 per year is what we grew. I don't see that as growing by wildfire. Now, what I do see is that the last 2 years, we had record room tax revenue coming from vacation rentals. So those vacation rentals that are there were actually being utilized more. People were able to work from home. They could work from anywhere. They worked from Seaside. I think we've seen that in the growth of building of new houses and stuff. A lot of new people moving to town. The growth that has happened has been from people out of the area moving here because they can. That does not help the low-income housing, workforce housing, the housing shortages we have, because the things that are being built have not gone to local citizens. A moratorium on I was on the planning commission when the last regulations came out with the 40% and 50% limits. And we thought long and hard about that. We also talked about having an overall cap, and we didn't come to that conclusion because we figured it would take care of itself. Us seeing that only 13, there's been a growth of 13 over the last 7 years, I think tells us the same thing. We increased the fees, the business license fees at that time, to help pay, to have Jeff here so that we could have better communication between the citizens, the neighbors of the VRDs, and the city, so that the planning commission could take action when somebody wasn't being a good VRD owner. There are great things happening in our VRD community. Decreasing the number of VRDs does not equal more affordable housing, and I think that's a fallacy. I don't support the moratorium. I think that if there's a number that we're trying to get that we haven't gotten so far, I don't know what that number is to tell us that we need a moratorium to stop what's happening, because I think we have the built-in limits already there that are necessary.
Tita?
Okay. Well, I think Victoria's comments about Jeff are very well made. I think she's a perfect example of people who were strongly opposed to us hiring a compliance officer, and now being very pleased that we do have one. And Jeff has gone above and beyond, I believe. I think a lot of why things are working well with Jeff here is Jeff reaches out and he educates. He educates both the homeowners who live in the neighborhoods, as well as educating the VRD owners, the second owners. And I kind of put there's a difference. That there are a lot of second owners that they do live in their house more than they rent it out.
Tita, I'm wondering if everybody here knows who Jeff is. We've been talking about
Jeff, why don't you stand up?
Stand up. So there's Jeff. Yeah.
Now, we had the workshop on was it November 30th, I believe, 29th. And at that workshop, it was an inquiry kind of thing. And there were a lot of things that there were no answers to the questions. And one of the situations is that we don't have a lot in our data system. I think Jeff is working hard to correct all that. But some of it is that historically, we just don't have the information. So I currently sit on the North Coast Tourism Management Task Force. And that is a group of business people, tourism people, lodging people, who are looking to keep this area as a good place for tourism, but also hopefully manage the tourism coming so that the tourists and the visitors don't destroy the beauty of our area. So there's a lot of work going on that. I'm well aware that Seaside's economy is tourist driven, and that we have a delicate balance between the maximum livability and maximum tourism economics to navigate. Adequate businesses such as shops, restaurants, personal services, whether it's electrical or plumbing or housekeeping, and accommodations must exist to attract and service visitors. We realize that second homes, whether empty or sometimes used, are a factor in maintaining our lower water rates. Because our system is everybody pays the same water rate, whether you use the water or not. And from that, the residents who live here and use the most water our rates are kept lower by the fact that those who don't use the water are still paying the same rates. So a bit of a subsidy, if you will. I realize that the tourist industry accounts for most of the jobs in Seaside. However, livability for Seaside residents must not be considered second class to business and tourism interests. And I think that's a lot of what I think about too, is the livability. And I would dare anybody to say they've never heard someone who lives here saying, "Those damn tourists," because they do. But it's kind of like biting the hand that feeds us, if you think about it. Because if we don't have the tourists, we don't have the businesses, we don't have the services, we don't have the jobs. And so we do have to remember that. We have to remember also that Seaside's ordinances allow VRDs as a conditional use in residential zones. Put simply, we are allowing businesses to operate in residential neighborhoods. It is incumbent upon us to routinely and periodically review the conditional use parameters. And so the thought of a moratorium came from, while we're reviewing this, before we start giving more people the same expanse of benefits, if you will, that we put a pause on it to allow us to review it. I am all for a task force made up. Well, I'll keep going. I've read some of the Chamber's document, and I applaud the work and efforts that went into it. As it is further used and referenced in the future, I would like to see footnotes showing how the stated statistics were obtained and computed. While I believe that we have rules for VRD property care standards, I certainly don't discourage the Chamber's task force for making recommendations for property care standards for VRDs. I would look forward to having a task force looking at property care standards, looking at what our questions are regarding VRDs. The bottom line is the livability of both those who come to visit here and the livability of those who live here 24/7, 365. And those, so everybody, sometimes I get the feeling that our full-time residents feel like they're the second-class citizens in our town, even though they know that their jobs, most of the jobs here, depend on those visitors to town. And again, I am not looking to take anything away from anybody who has it now. I'm not looking to reduce. I'm not looking to get rid of. If somebody's got a permit now, I'm not looking to get rid of that. I'm not looking to reduce anything. So the thought behind the moratorium is just take a pause. I'm curious, Kevin, how many VRD permits do we get a month? Or excuse me, how many permits do we issue a month? About?
Mike, Kevin. Microphone, please.
Oh, sorry.
It seems like we run 1 to 2 through the Planning Commission each month. Again, Jeff provided the numbers on there that would show you actually what it was on an annual basis, but you'd just be breaking that down and separating it.
Well, issuing permits is not just through the Planning Commission.
Right, and so then the other ones are administrative, and those are probably, roughly, what did you say, Jeff, 3?
Come on down.
I would say the administrative permits probably 3 or 4 a month. But one thing that I've been thinking about as far as data collecting and keeping everybody informed of what's going on that will probably start at the end of this month is I'll try to issue a monthly tally of how many applications we took in, where they're located, if they go to the planning
that's real
commission or
nice.
not. And then that will help, everybody track everything that's going on and give the planning commission and the city council an idea of what's.
We'll also
So-
have how many have dropped off or sold or those
Exactly.
types of
We'll
things.
try to.
And this really isn't about the total number that I'm looking at, but, so if we're issuing 4 administratively, and let's say 3 at the most, so we're at the high, I'm estimating at the high end, that's 7 a month. 7 times 12 is 84, and that's how many permits during a year's time might be affected, future permits or possible permits might be affected by a moratorium, at which point, at the end of the moratorium, they're in line, because they could already be signed up.
What-
But I'm just doing the math.
Yeah, and Jeff and I have talked about the fact that if in fact, if you start down the amendment road saying that you are going to have a moratorium, we probably are going to see
yes, you will.
another
I
large
understand.
increase of get in through the door before it closes. And that's gonna, I mean, it's gonna really distort the numbers, because you're going to have people like Mr. Winstanley, who has a house, who may say, well, I want to go ahead and get that because I don't.
Exactly.
I am getting those phone calls from homeowners here in Seaside already because of the moratorium discussion.
Right,
Good,
right.
good. Okay.
So if we can discuss all the things we need to discuss without a moratorium, well, maybe that's the way to go. But if we're going to change things, I don't want to pull a fast switch on anybody. Okay.
Okay. I'm going to jump to the far end. Our counselor there, Tom?
Well, thank you. I too was on the planning commission for 16 years and processed quite a few of the VRD licenses that came through. I think there were 140 when I started in 1999. Now it's a ballpark of 400. And there's been concern that some of the properties have been taken out of the market for affordable housing. A lot of homes, I remember hearing people on the city council say it was wonderful that we took that broken down old house and turned it into this fancy new rebuilt home, but it certainly isn't affordable anymore to the people that used to rent it. And it's the trend of the increase in numbers that I kind of wonder about. It's to be expected that there will be people that drop off and others that come along that want to do it. But if someday we ended up with 600 or 700 VRDs, that would be that many more houses potentially that might have had some affordability for people who are middle class. And so I would be in favor of taking a breather and for a year with a moratorium to review things comprehensively. And at the end of the 1 year, chop it off and decide what to do at that point in time.
Thank you, Tom. Randy?
So I tend to sort of agree with what Tom just said. You know, not only we did a countywide, but we have a city housing study also. So we're not just pulling this out of the hat, that this greatly impacts our housing market and affordable housing. And I think someone that nobody has really mentioned here, well, you did, is a first-time homeowner, and the person that grew up here maybe wants to buy a home. Well, yeah, you say they can't buy this $1 million home, but what has happened since you were on the Planning Commission in '99 and now, well, say it went from 100 VRD permits to 400, but in between there's all the attrition, the ones that were bought, remodeled, maybe they're resold, and those people didn't use them for a VRD, but it moved them into a higher bracket. It moved everybody else to, not everybody else, but a lot of buyers into buying homes, remodeling them for a second home, or using that for a business venture, a VRD. And so what it's done for people growing up here is it's removed a lot of housing, and you don't see it in one snapshot, but over a period of 20 years and what's happened to housing, it's just greatly increased the value. And it's, you can't blame one segment, but this is certainly one that we've seen identified through studies that contributes to this going on. Everyone is a conditional use, unless it's in an RR zone. And my hope would be that we don't touch the RR zones during any of this moratorium. So it's not saying anybody that has a permit now loses it or isn't going to be able to renew it. But what it is saying that is we're going to take a break and not consider any for a certain amount of time. Maybe it's 12 months. I like the idea of a task force during that time. And I sort of like this idea.
Okay. Steve, Council President?
I'm not in favor of moratorium. I think the things we have already in place are well suited to address our issues. We just put the 40% thing in place a couple of years ago, as well as a rule that says you can only have one vacation rental. And those came about because of our city council goals 2 years ago. Mr. Frank and I went to Kevin and had these discussions, and they were adopted as policy, which is a lot simpler to do than doing an ordinance. I feel like we kind of blindsided Jeff at that workshop that we had because we were asking him questions he'd never been asked before. And I think his report has showed that, if he has a little time, his report today for this meeting shows that he can come up with the answers we want if you give him a chance. Again, he's only been on the job for a couple of years, and he continues to build data and will be able to give us more and more answers as we ask him. As far as I know, the chamber's numbers came from the city, right? At the very beginning of the report, it says they sat down with Russ Vandenberg and I don't know how many others, I assume Jeff, doing the numbers. So there are numbers. So I think the Planning Commission's doing their job. If we want to reduce the 40 to 35 or 30, it's a fairly simple thing to do, and we can do that. The livability standard, I have a couple of vacation rentals not too far from my house, and we've never had a problem with them at all. But I know if we did, and I've told people in the neighborhood, we got a number for a guy to call, and he will take care of it. The other thing, and I hadn't really thought about it when I forget who it was mentioned, it was Ron, that if we put a moratorium on, are we going to end up with more illegal ones? Is it going to make Jeff's job that much harder, or, they're just going to go under the radar? So I like what Brian said too. I don't think there's an emergency. If we want to address this, we can within the Planning Commission or a task force. It just doesn't seem like we need to go, it'd be a lot of work, not just putting the moratorium, but like Kevin said, we have to address this other ordinance as well to make sure that we understand what we're doing and what the recourse is for our citizens that feel like they've lost something. And I guess one other thing that I was thinking about, I don't know whether to apply or not, but once you sell a house, if you were under a moratorium, I would expect that the new owner wouldn't be able to get a vacation rental. And so you're going to automatically reduce, or you're going to have that issue where somebody's going to say, well, I could sell my house for X, and now I can only sell it for somewhat less. And there's been, again, numbers provided that show the amount of sales and the dollar value per square foot. So that answers the question right there about whether it's affordable or not, any of these houses that are in the vacation rental market. So anyway, I think a better answer is letting our planning commission handle it. And if we want to tell them to reduce percentages or those things, go ahead.
Thank you, Steve. Finally, I think from early on, I really was a proponent for a moratorium, mainly because I was not informed. I did not know enough about where we were in terms of the balance between available housing, the density zones. I did not know enough. And with Jeff's help and the good reports, I've become more educated. What I think we have, in essence, is a moratorium with the 40% and 50%. And even if we were to adopt a moratorium, we would not include the RR zone, which is a good component of the homes that are in the vacation rental market. And so, and those would still be available for adoption if we left the RR zone out. But what I think we have some work to do to really refine the work to make sure Jeff has the tools for enforcement, and also to make sure that we are including all of the good thinking. And I would include really reviewing those percentage levels, the 50% and 40, do those still make sense? And then putting a task force together that would consider all of those components. Some people who are in the management business, some people who own vacation rentals, and then some people who live in the area where vacation rentals are that have shown concern, to sit down and talk about how do we best structure this. The other thing that really drives my thinking, and I know this sounds awfully utilitarian, but vacation rentals generate over $1 million in bed tax revenue a year. It's a major economic engine in our community. I do not want to do anything to blunt the potential for that to continue to improve and grow. So I'm thinking we have, in essence, a moratorium. How can we improve it? I think working with a task force that would work with our planning commission and come back to the council for some amendments would be a better step than a moratorium. So that's where I stand at this point. So at this point, you've heard our points of view. I don't know whether anybody wants to place a motion on the table for consideration, or if you want to table this until the next meeting to give us a little more time to consider all the opinions. I'll leave that to the council at this point.
I just have a couple more points, if I may. I guess the question that I have for those that are in favor of the moratorium is, what are we trying to answer? And can it not be done continuing the way we are if our net growth is typically under 2 VRDs per year? So over the next year, we can expect 2 VRDs to come in. Is that a reason to go through all of the risk of putting a moratorium in place, having claims against the city for loss of property value, while we try and get whatever answers it would be in that time period? I don't think it's worth it. And I'm never for putting in a policy where we don't have a specific reason that is going to be effective to do what we want it to do.
Good point. Okay, the floor is open for any action that the council would like to take.
Hearing none, I would move that we table the idea of a moratorium on VRDs moving forward.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion?
with a date on it, or just table?
It's tabled.
permanent? Okay.
Any further discussion?
Because it's a non-action. It's,
I'm going to ask for a roll call vote. Kim, please.
Okay. Thank you. Counselor Frank?
Yes.
Mayor Barber?
Yes.
Counselor Montero?
Yes.
Counselor Pazalski?
yes.
Council President Wright?
Yes.
And Counselor Horing?
Yes.
No, thank you. Thank you all for your input tonight. And this is a process that works. This works for us to continue to work on a crucial issue in our community. And we couldn't do this work without your help. So thank you so much. We still have a little business to do here. Resolution 3998, a resolution of the city, Oregon amending, adopting fees for the city. I think there's a particular area we're concerned about. Mark, would you enlighten us on that?
Well, I don't want to disappoint the library, so there actually are two, Mayor, but I'm not sure how controversial the library's issue would be anyway. Resolution 3998 is a resolution that will amend Resolution 3955. Resolution 3955 is our fees ordinance. It's a miscellaneous fees ordinance. Actually, we are only presenting two changes to the council tonight. One is the library has a new printer, and they simply want to be able to charge 5 cents a copy in black and white and 25 cents a copy in color. That makes sure that we recoup our costs for making copies. And the other item that is on this resolution is to add a fee, or actually there are two different fees, but add fees for annexation of property. As the council is aware, we did a fairly large annexation a little bit ago, and we were kind of blindsided by the fact that the county charged us $1,000 a lot, or $100 a lot to record that annexation, which totaled $4,600. We didn't know that was going to take place, and so we ended up, if you will, kind of fronting that cost. In the future, we believe that we should charge $100 per lot for annexation. That way, the person who wants to annex into the city actually pays the fee to have it done. So those are the two items, Mr. Mayor, that we're adding to our miscellaneous fee resolution. So that's what the council will be deciding.
Again, we are available for public comments. Anyone want to make a comment regarding this resolution? I think we probably worn you out, but any council comments?
Would note that the library fee is going down.
Yes, it has.
So that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's a bargain price for sure.
Best price.
Yeah.
I move we read by title only Resolution 3998.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. Motion carries.
Resolution 3998, resolution of the City of Seaside, amending Resolution 3955, adopting fees for city services.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adopt. Those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, the same. That motion carries. Well, we're done with our event, our agenda. I'll entertain just some comments, brief from city staff that are here. Dale, you want to make any comments tonight? No? You're worn out? Kevin, anything more?
No, it's plenty late, Mayor.
Okay. Brian, anything you'd like to add?
Well, of course I do.
Yeah.
Hey, we've got our annual awards on February 10th. And this is where the Byron, the Business of the Year, it's going to be over at the Best Western, and I would hope all of you would jump online, buy your tickets. There is an auction component to it. There is going to be a silent auction that is done on your phone. So if in fact you are not able to attend, you can still bid and win. There is going to be a live auction, but that will only be for people that are within the building for the event. So also get online and vote for your favorite in each one of the categories. Thank you very much. I appreciate each and every one of you.
Good. Chief Ham? Nothing?
Going through lots of them.
Did I cover all the staff? Jeff, I'm sure you don't want to add anything more? Oh, okay. So over to Mark Winstanley then.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not going to, it's a little late and I'm not going to keep you, but I will tell you, it must be Chamber of Commerce banquet time because I'll be attending the Astoria Chamber event next week, I believe. And then the following week, we're going to be doing this Seaside event. So anyway, it's good though that these kind of events are recognizing the people in both communities that certainly are doing good things, and we appreciate them very much.
John?
Nothing to add, Mayor. Thanks.
Cam, anything tonight? And Dan, thank you for a long meeting today, for being here by 5 o'clock today. Thank you, appreciate it.
Helpful.
Council, any comments? Commissioner Horning.
With regard to the tsunami from the volcanic eruption, it turned out to be a 4-inch wave here at Seaside. That's not the important thing. It was the unpredictability of it. It came when no one expected it. It didn't announce itself, and they never do. So always remember to have your go bag ready. And when it's too hard to stay standing for over a minute, you have to get to the hills within 20 minutes or the tsunami's going to eat you. And use it as a learning experience to take home.
Yeah, good. Randy?
Just want to say it's great to have a big turnout today, and we always, I can speak for the entire council, is we love it when we see a lot of people out there and people voicing their opinions, and it's great to hear ideas and even the suggested uses for that property the county gave to us, maybe back to us, and maybe we'll get some more ball fields for the kids.
Yeah, that'd be great. Wonderful. On the far end, David.
Sure. I just wanted to say, hearing about Chief Verley's drone going to work during the event, perhaps you can figure out, I'm sure he would love to do it, is to put some verbal communication through that drone to be able to communicate with people out on the beach. When I was down by the beach, we'd see people run out there, but the police didn't want to go out there because then they couldn't watch what was going on. So being able to send that drone out to communicate with those people would have been helpful.
I can tell you that probably the comments being made when we noticed that were probably inappropriate.
Okay. David, is that it?
That's all.
Tita?
I too am very pleased to see so many people in the audience. My first city council meeting in 2002, I was the one and only person in the audience. And at the end, the city councilors asked me who I was and why I was here. So it's very nice. And so, of course, have to put the plug in then. We are always looking for volunteers.
Yes.
We have commissions, committees, and we're looking for citizens to become involved. Thank you.
Good.
There was one comment, I forget who it was, but it said they had a problem finding something on the website. Our Kim over here, Kim has the answers to everything, not just the website, but the rest of the city. So, yeah, you always go to Kim if yeah. Mark and others, Mark asked me, or I volunteered, I guess, to talk about the flooding issue on 101 South at the Northwest Act meeting. I did so, and there were a lot of comments saying, yes, we need to do something. It came out that what we'll try to do is see if Regional Solutions would take this on as a project, just like they did the Elk.
For the elk.
They
elk
put
are still
together,
there, though.
the elk are still there, yeah. Well, it's something that has been a problem forever, and it won't solve easy, but if we can get a little help at the state level.
Be nice.
And with that, the mayor here was the co-sponsor of that initiative, and they actually presented a report to us about that initiative, and I think we ought to have it before the council at some point. I've been appointed to a National League of Cities committee too. Finance Administration Intergovernmental Relations, acronym is FAIR. One of 2 Oregonians but basically the idea is to have a say for little cities at the national level. So if you have anything you want to bring up, I'll do that. It's Zoom meetings so far. Not going to Washington, D.C. if I can help it.
No. Great. Well, I'll close the meeting with a great JFK quote, and it applies to what we've done here tonight and all the work that we have to do. And by the way, I want to say that people forget, and we talk about the volunteers of our committees, boards and committees. All these people are volunteers. I remember when I was running for re-election, I did some door knocking in the community, and a little lady came to the door and said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm your mayor. I'm here to ask you to vote for me." She said, "I have one question. How much do we pay you?" And I could not convince her that I did this as a volunteer job. I hope she voted for me, but it was a great question. But the JFK quote is that there are risks and cost to action, but there are far less than long-range risks of comfortable inaction. With that, we're adjourned.